Hi everyone, thanks for being here. My name is Micaiah Poteet. A little bit about me. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and graduated from Covenant College. And this year I've been working at the Mission Preschool as a teacher and research assistant. I first heard about Fellows through my college roommate who grew up hosting Fellows in her home in DC. And as I learned more about the program, I got really excited about doing Fellows myself. I decided to do Fellows for a few reasons, one of them being a lot of uncertainty about where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do next and where I wanted to live. And I wanted to learn more about how the Lord had made me and who He has made me to be and how to commit to community and a city. For my presentation, I'm going to walk through the 4 key themes of the Chattanooga Fellows: faith, community, civic engagement, and vocation, and what I learned from each of them. First is vocation. Heading into my Fellows year, I had a lot of uncertainty about vocation, and as I entered Fellows, I was hoping for clarity on all the questions that I had about vocation and calling. And although I still don't have specific, clear answers about everything, I've seen God's hand in the midst of all the unknowns. During my internship this year, as I mentioned, I was a teacher and research assistant at the Mission Preschool, and it wasn't the type of role that I had really envisioned myself in for my Fellows year, but my experience there and through our class Every Good Endeavor have significantly shaped my understanding of work this year. At my work placement, I've grown in a deeper respect for early childhood educators. It's a really hard job, and gained an understanding of the impact of the first 4 years of life. And through all of that, I've learned a lot about patience, a lot about slowing down, and God's deep love for His children. One way my perspective on vocation has been shaped is through the numerous opportunities we've had to talk to different people in the city about their vocational journeys. And typically these stories aren't linear as we might expect, but they tend to be full of lots of ups and downs. These speakers have recounted God's faithfulness to them along the journey and have been faithful as they've just lived their daily lives of work. It's been really encouraging to hear people talk about the times that they weren't sure why they were in a certain job, and then looking back, they can see God's hand weaving a beautiful story. And as Ralston has often reminded us, God writes better stories than we do. Another way my perspective has shifted is through Every Good Endeavor with Lane Ford, as I mentioned. In class, we talked about the idea that we rule by creating and serving others with what we do. God invites us to participate in His story with Him. We get to take part in His redeeming work in the world, and it's been really encouraging this year to consider the bigger picture of God's plan in my everyday workplace. This view has really shaped my view of work and given me a new lens that gives me hope in the difficulties of work and joy in the everyday mundane. Although I still have many questions about vocation and calling, these questions have led me to a deeper curiosity about the way that God created me and the world that I live in. I'm learning to be okay with these unresolved questions, and so as I go forward, I'm excited to continue asking questions and staying curious about the way God created me and allowing these stories of vocational journeys to remind me of God's faithfulness. Next is community. I had a great community in college and was really hopeful for that post-college as well, but I knew from friends who had already graduated that this could be pretty difficult to cultivate, so I was nervous about this after college. But this year I've been met by so many sweet people in the community who have surrounded us with lots of wisdom and thoughtfulness. This community has helped deepen my understanding of what true Christian community looks like through generosity and hospitality. This year, I've lived with Ben and Ashley Baldwin, and it's been so great to live with them and their 2 kids, Ellie and Declan, right there in the middle. We've shared meals together, laughed and played together, and had lots of meaningful conversation. And it's been such a beautiful and tangible picture of what hospitality looks like. Alongside that, feasting and storytelling has been a huge part of our year, as we've gathered in people's homes every week to hear their stories. And hearing about these lived-in experiences of men and women in the city has reminded me of the importance of sharing stories, of reflecting and meditating on the faithfulness of God in both the beauty and the brokenness of life. Liz has also reminded us of this in her book study on To Be Told, as we talked about the idea that we are all storied people who are thrust into God's bigger story. So as I leave Fellows, I want to continue in the multi-generational community that I've been so blessed to be a part of this year. I've had lots of mentors who are older than me. I've gotten to be part of a multi-generational community group through my church. I've spent lots of time with children in my host home and at work, and I've learned a lot about God's love and about community through each of these different ages and stages of life. Next is civic engagement. This year I've been blown away by the intentionality of people in Chattanooga who care about the city and are seeking to engage faithfully as members of a community. As I said, I went to Covenant College, so I was familiar with Chattanooga, but I pretty much just stayed in my college bubble during college. So I missed the opportunity to get to know Chattanooga then, but I knew it was really special and have truly seen that this year. One of the questions that we've been asking as fellows this year is, how do we love a city well, not just the beautiful parts, but also the broken parts of a city? This semester we went on a walking tour of Chattanooga, and our guide told us about stories of injustices in the history of our city. Slowing down for me and just walking around these cities, we also got to see Birmingham and Selma and Montgomery. So just slowing down to walk around these cities has helped me think about how we view our city with the eyes of Jesus. Although we have seen many places of injustice and brokenness, we've also seen places of justice being restored and dignity of people being restored. So after hearing all these stories, I'm coming away with a deeper love for the city of Chattanooga and a greater compassion for the people around me as I seek to see people as Jesus sees them. This year has also given me such a beautiful picture of what it looks like to commit to a city. So as I leave Fellows, I want to commit to the city that I live in, no matter where I am, listening to stories and seeing all that a city holds through the eyes of Jesus, both the beautiful and broken. Faith. It's been so sweet to learn about our faith together this year through church and Old and New Testament classes and everyday faithfulness classes. During college, I grew a lot in my faith, but I still had a lot of questions about what it would look like to live out my faith every day post-college, specifically in work and rest. Throughout the year, I've grown in a daily dependence on the Lord in just the everyday mundane moments. Through habits and liturgy, I've fought against distraction and sought to just sit with God and see his presence in my daily life. He is so very present in every moment, whether it's making our bed or brushing our teeth or going to work, he's very near. So for me, growing in this awareness of God's presence has helped me depend on the Lord daily, rather than depending on myself. This year we read parts of Liturgy of the Ordinary as part of one of our classes as we thought about what it means to be part of a bigger gospel story. Warren writes, God is forming us into new people, and the place of that formation is in the small moment of today. Another way that my faith has been formed is through intentional time in solitude and rest this year. At the beginning of each semester, the fellows went on a silence and solitude retreat that allowed us to spend individual time with God, creating space to speak to him and hear his voice speak to us. This practice has really helped me pay closer attention to God's voice in my life, not just in the silence and solitude, but also in my everyday busy life. One of my favorite readings from our retreat in January was by Henry Nouwen. He talks about the idea that Jesus modeled for us how to live out our daily lives in a way that creates space to hear God's voice speak to us. And he talks about 3 movements, from solitude to community to ministry. And I found it super important and formative to create space to rest in God and allow him to call me beloved so that I can go out and love my community well. Following Fellows, I plan to take this habit of Sabbath and rest with me as I go on. I think we all have the tendency to get busy and distracted. So I want to create a habit and a rhythm of rest and solitude with God as I continue to listen to his voice. It's also been really important to me to remain curious and pay attention to the ways that he is present in every little moment of life. Something that we've talked about this year that's really stuck with me is that rather than living for God, which is important, we get to live with God, walking side by side and listening to his voice in the small moments. One way I plan to do this is through creating more intentional time praying, specifically in the middle of my day, so that I can recenter myself and see the ways that God's been at work and ask him to give me eyes to see the way he will continue to work in my day. I mentioned several things that I want to take with me as I leave Fellows, and I'm super grateful for all the things that I've learned this year. For the stories that remind me of God's faithfulness, for understanding more about rest and Sabbath, for God's presence in the mundane, and for a deeper commitment to community and place. To close, I want to read a short section from the Liturgy of Leavings and Every Moment Holy. This liturgy reminds me of the things that I've talked about, God's presence with us no matter where we are and what we do. O Spirit of God, be present in our parting as you were in our gathering. Be present in our journeys. Be present in our days to come. Be present in our works and in our words and in our hearts. Be present in the bonds of our community. Lord Christ, be ever at work among us and through us. I am so thankful for all these things that I learned and all the people who have invested in Fellows this year. It's been such a joy to be part of this program. Thank you.